esteemed participants and delegates, we shall be commencing with the formal proceedings for the session on time, which is another 5 minutes from now. Thank you for being here. We are already joined by the learned panelists for this session, awaiting the arrival of a few more, and then we shall unveil the session proceedings to you. Thank you very much.
ये देखिए इधर ये उधर क्यों खोल तो यहाँ पे एक्सटेंड पे क्या हाँ एक्सटेंड पे वहाँ जाके क्यों खोल सेकंड वाली इस डिस्प्ले तो नहीं दे रखी देखिए तो हम वहाँ पे जाए दो डिस्प्ले दे रहा है ये तो कुछ करिए कुछ भी नहीं है डिस्प्ले पे अभी तो कुछ भी नहीं ये यहाँ खोल रहा है जब ये खोल रहा हूँ ना देखिए तो वो उधर जाके खोल रहा है कॉल करते टाइम तो बंद करना थोड़ा बड़ा कर लीजिए ना तो व्यू एक्स्ट्रा तो ग्रीन हाइड्रोजन के नाम से चलिए क्या पार्टनर है दे डालना तो दे डालो टाइम तो हो लिया इसमें हमें लग रहा डीपीटी नहीं चलेगी क्योंकि अभी तक तो आई नहीं। तो चलते हैं और आएगी तो चलेगी। ये कैमरा ऐसा लग रहा है अलग से बार लगा रखे हैं। बिना एयर के लाइट
Distinguished gathering of the aficionados of the green hydrogen ecosystem, a very warm and hearty welcome to a series of expert-led technical deliberations. Ladies and gentlemen, time now to shake the wisdom of some financial brilliance to the brainy skulls. Time now to unveil a session on financing green hydrogen, bridging the cost gap. It is our honor to have amidst us Mr. V.K. Dewangan, the Chairman and Managing Director, REC, to chair this session. Ladies and gentlemen, as I request you, sir, to please grace the days, please extend a resonating round of applause. A noted IAS officer, Mr. Dewangan's illustrious career spans across administrative positions in the area of finance, power and energy, petroleum and natural gas, law and justice, revenue administration, and bounty more. Having served as the Additional Secretary Ministry of Power, Sir's strategic vision today guides REC's ambitious corporate objectives. Personification of academic brilliance. Sir is a BE in electronics from NIT Bhopal and PG in optoelectronics and optical communication from IIT Delhi. What an honor to have you amidst us, sir. A very warm. We're also delighted to have amidst us Mr. Hitesh Sachdeva, the esteemed session moderator, ladies and gentlemen, as he now graces the days. A partner in KPMG India, Sir brings with him over 24 years of experience in infrastructure sector, including conventional and renewable power, transportation, urban construction. Exemplary 18 plus years of experience in the transactions and strategy space. He has assisted several corporate houses and financial investors in various aspects of investment and financing in renewable energy, new energies, and sustainable energy space, and has also advised several financial institutions of repute in designing, fundraising, and product strategies for deployment of finance. Delighted to welcome you, sir. Well, an illustrious panelist speakers are now to be called to grace the days, and it is overwhelming for us to now invite Mr. Pradeep Kumar Das to please grace the days. Ladies and gentlemen, Chairman and Managing Director of IREDA, a fellow member of the Institute of Cost Accountants of India, and an associate member of the Institute of Company Secretaries of India. Sir holds a PGDPM from the Xavier Institute of Management. It is under his leadership that IREDA has become India's largest pure-play green financing NBFC, achieving significant loan book growth and profitability. Well, with a bounteous of 37 years of experience, Mr. Das has held various financial roles in both public and private sectors, including positions at REC, HALE, ITDC, where he led significant disinvestment initiatives. A warm welcome, sir. And may we please have you, sir, Mr. Ranjit Gupta, to now grace the days, ladies and gentlemen, the founder and CEO of Ocior Energy, spearheading development of green hydrogen and green ammonia projects in India and it is under his leadership that Ocior is advancing major projects in Odisha and Chile. Previously, as CEO of Ocior Power, he doubled the company's solar capacity and raised over $700 million in green bonds. Sir is also the co-founder of Ocior Energy and Orange Renewable, which are significantly impacting the renewable energy sector. Warm welcome, sir. Now, an even warmer welcome on the Indian land to Mr. Moez, ladies and gentlemen, the one who's leading World Bank India Energy team, focusing on scaling up the energy transition through investments, reforms, and analytics. With over 2 decades of experience, he promotes green energy and transport infrastructure. Previously, he coordinated the World Bank's energy and infrastructure engagement in North Africa, emphasizing power sector reform and regional integration. He began his career at IFC and joined the World Bank in 2008, working on hydropower and gas-to-power projects in sub-Saharan Africa. Well, it is since 2005 that he served Washington and various field offices, bringing extensive expertise in energy and infrastructure sector. A very warm welcome, sir. And now warmly welcoming Mr. Nishaanth Balashanmugam. Ladies and gentlemen, bringing with him over 16 years of industry experience, the founding director of Green Hydrogen Association, has been instrumental in bridging the gap between governments and industry to advance India's green hydrogen ambitions, establishing strong relationships with state governments and over 130 companies. A business graduate from Newcastle, UK, assists green hydrogen project developers with financing, capacity building, and policy guidance. He also serves as a program coordinator for the Climate and Energy Transition Finance Initiative, focusing on large-scale financing for energy transition projects. Welcome, sir. And now, please extend a round of applause as we are delighted to welcome Mr. K. Mukundan. Ladies and gentlemen, allow the one. Come on, ladies and gentlemen, we've just started the show. This guy is leading strategic initiatives and policy advisory at the National Investment and Infrastructure Fund. With an exemplary over 27 years of experience, he has held significant roles, including Executive Director at TVS Capital Funds, CEO of Limited. His extensive background also includes serving as a consultant at NIIF and Executive Director Investments at the Tamil Nadu Infrastructure Fund Management Corporation. His expertise spans across finance and infrastructure investment. Delighted to have you, sir. And now, warmly welcoming Mr. Tarun Shankar, a senior investment professional at the International Finance Corporation. Ladies and gentlemen, the World Bank Group has been, which is exemplary expertise and experience of 25 years, where he works with the global institutions across infrastructure sectors, leading equity investment and project finance closures. Well, it is at the World Bank that he managed public policy dialogues across Eastern Europe, Central Asia, and Asia Pacific region. He also led green bonds, capital market insurance for IFC in emerging sectors. Having previously worked as a senior manager at ILFS Limited, where he structured deals worth $2 billion across various infrastructure sectors. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the unveiling of an extremely learned and illustrious panel that shall be steering the session now. And with no further ado, may we please request the esteemed session chair, Mr. V.K. Dewangan, for his keynote lectures.
Before the comments are takes over, I'll request all the IREDA official to please stand and vacate the seat. Many guests are standing outside. Please come forward. Because this is MNRE program, being MNRE extended arm, it's my responsibility to ensure hospitality to you. Please come forward and IREDA employees, please take care of them. I also request on behalf of Dewangan of REC employees to facilitate the same thing. We are again in organization. Please ensure the guests who are outsiders, they can sit.
नहीं अभी भीड़ वही वाला कैमरा रहने देना जो अभी
to share this session on financing aspects of.
अरे तो ये भीड़ दिखा दें इन्हें
Ministry of New and Renewable Energy is organizing the second edition of International Conference on Green Hydrogen, India 2024, from 11th to 30th of September. I welcome the fellow panelist, Mr. Hitesh Sachdeva, partner KPMG, Mr. Pradeep Das, Chairman and Managing Director, IREDA, who was a former colleague of us in REC, Mr. Ranjit Gupta, Chief Executive Officer, Ocior, Mr. Nishaanth, Balashanmugam, Country Manager, India, India Green Hydrogen Organization, Mr. Moez, Cherif, Infrastructure Program Leader from the World Bank, Mr. Mukundan, Senior Principal Strategic Initiative and Policy Advisory, NIF, and Mr. Tarun Shankar, Senior Investment Professional, International Finance Corporation, and all the distinguished guests and my dear friends. Let me recall my days when I was posted in Ministry of Power. I was looking after the international cooperation in the Ministry of Power, and I used to co-chair the joint working group meetings with different countries. When we were having joint working group meetings with the USA, Japan, Australia, Germany, and European Union, the discussion on green hydrogen was one of the prominent discussion from 2019 to 2022. And at that point of time, we were deliberating that India needs to launch some green hydrogen mission, and I'm happy to note that based on the ecosystem provided by Ministry of New Renewable Energy, Government of India has launched this green hydrogen mission. We in the Ministry of Power, in order to facilitate the development of renewable energy, particularly green hydrogen, green ammonia, we carried out an amendment in Energy Conservation Act, wherein Government of India can mandate the consumption of renewable energy sources. And based on that, Ministry of New and Renewable Energy has worked out the trajectory of consumption of green hydrogen, green ammonia. Initially, it has to start with the fertilizer and refinery sector, and gradually it will be adopted by the steel sector. As you are all aware, to establish India as a global hub for green hydrogen production, Government of India has launched National Green Hydrogen Mission on 4th January 2023 with an outlay of about 19,744 crore rupees. This mission targets the developing green hydrogen production capacity of at least 5 million metric ton per annum. The production capacity targeted by 2030 is likely to leverage over about 8 lakh crore in total investment, and nearly 50 million metric ton per annum of CO2 emission are expected to be averted as a result of various green hydrogen initiatives under this mission. The outlay of 19,744 crore, which has been provided under this National Green Hydrogen Mission, covers the outlay for the strategic intervention for green hydrogen transition, that is called SITE program. There is an outlay of 17,490 crore. 1,466 crore has been kept apart for the pilot projects for green hydrogen. 400 crore rupee has been provided for the research and development, which would be required for the promotion of green hydrogen in the country, and about 388 crore has been provided for other mission components. Now coming to this SITE program, Strategic Intervention for Green Hydrogen Transition Program, there are two components. First component is about how to incentivize electrolyzer manufacturing in the country, and second component is about how to incentivize the green hydrogen and derivative production. The component one of the green hydrogen, the site program, that is strategic intervention for green hydrogen transition, pertains to the incentive scheme for electrolyzer manufacturing for the period from 2025-26 to 2029-30, for which an outlay of 4,440 crore has been made. Under tranche 1 of this component, SECI, Solar Energy Corporation of India, has successfully bid out a total electrolyzer manufacturing capacity of about 1,500 megawatt. The incentives are to be provided for a period of 5 years from the date of commencement of the manufacturing, with base incentive will start with about 4,440 rupees per kilowatt, to be gradually tapered down to about 1,140 rupees per kilowatt. The component 2 of the site program pertains to the incentive scheme for green hydrogen and its derivative production for the period from 2025-26 to the year 2029-30, for which an outlay of 13,050 crore has been provided. This component has 2 modes. Mode 1 pertains to the bidding on list incentive demanded over the 3-year period through a competitive selection process. Under this mode 1, Solar Energy Corporation of India has successfully bid out a total capacity of 450,000 metric ton per annum of green hydrogen production, comprising of 410,000 metric ton bucket for technology agnostic pathways and about 40,000 metric ton bucket for biomass based pathways. SECI has invited bids in July 2024 under the same mode for tranche 2 with a similar capacity. Under this mode 1 incentive, these incentives have been capped at rupee 50 per kg for the first year and rupee 40 per kg for the second year and rupee 30 per kg for the third year of production. The mode 2 of this incentivizing green hydrogen and derivative production, a provision has been made that the implementing agency shall aggregate demand and will call for bids for procurement of green hydrogen and its derivatives at the lowest cost through a competitive selection process. Mode 2 consists of 2 components. One is for the green ammonia and second is for green hydrogen, which is being implemented by oil and gas company. SECI has been made the implementing agency for the site program. Now, coming to the ecosystem for the green hydrogen, the 4 main players are there. One is definitely the role of government, where the policy support is evolved by the government. Second important component is that of entrepreneurs. The entrepreneurs who are going to do investment on the green hydrogen and associated entire value chain. Third important role is to be played by the technology providers, like the technology, like electrolyzer technology, for which this green hydrogen production cost, which is at present about $5 to $6 per kg. Lot of research and development has to go on to bring down the cost of production of this green hydrogen to about $1 to $2 per kg. Then only it will make commercial scaling up possible with regard to development of green hydrogen. And the fourth and most important part is financing. Until unless financing is provided to these all initiatives, all these efforts will come to a naught. For that, we have gathered today to brainstorm as to how to facilitate the financing for this green hydrogen and green ammonia initiatives. Let me share with you the efforts taken by REC for promoting green hydrogen and green ammonia related energy transition in the country. We are targeting to attain a green energy portfolio of about 3 lakh crore by the year 2030. Right now, our renewable energy portfolio is about 42,000 crore out of our total asset under management of about 5,09,000 crore. We are targeting to increase our asset under management to say about 10 lakh crore by the year 2030. And majority of this, 30% of this asset under management will come from renewable energy projects, which will amount to about 3 lakh crore by the year 2030. REC has been financing almost all types of new and clean renewable energy projects, which includes solar, wind, hybrid solar wind, small hydro, large hydro projects, storage solution, be it battery energy storage or pumped storage hydro projects, electric vehicle mobility and the associated charging infrastructure, solar module manufacturing, wind turbine manufacturing, but the most important is the green hydrogen and green ammonia. REC was one of the first financing agency in the country to have financed these green hydrogen, green ammonia projects. When we had organized a green finance summit on the sideline of Energy Transition Working Group last year in the month of July in Goa, we were able to sign MOUs worth 16,000 crore rupee with Acme Group and rupee 50,000 crore MOU with Awada Group for financing the green hydrogen and green ammonia projects to be set up in Odisha. And I'm happy to share with you that after having signed this MOU, REC has been able to have sanctioned the proposals worth about 8,000 crore rupee. One is for Acme Group for about 300 metric ton per day capacity project in Oman. And second sanction that we have done for green hydrogen and green ammonia project is in the state of Odisha. With this, in this session, we'll brainstorm how to facilitate, what kind of enablement in financing has to be done. And the crucial aspect is how to bring down the cost of financing for this green hydrogen, green ammonia initiative. One, of course, is that we have to do a lot of investment in the technology, the electrolyzer technology. Then the project which are coming in India, the offtake arrangement. Of course, domestic, when we talk about domestic market, this green hydrogen is likely to be used mainly in fertilizer and refinery sector initially, but later on, steel sector is also going to use green hydrogen on a large scale. There is also good potential and good prospect for exporting green ammonia. There is huge demand abroad. In fact, the initial green hydrogen green ammonia project which have come in India, they have offtake arrangement with Japanese companies and the Switzerland company. The offtake arrangement is quite crucial. The financing requirement of the developer has to take care of their technology requirement, the input requirement, electrolyzer manufacturing. For that, perhaps it would be better if they can avail this financing facility through the GIFT City subsidiary which are being opened by our friends IREDA, PFC and REC is also in the pipeline to open a subsidiary in GIFT City. If we finance the green hydrogen project through the GIFT City subsidiary, we'll be able to lend in terms of dollar, and the offtake arrangements is they are exporting green ammonia. They'll have to pay in terms of dollars. It will amount to the natural hedging. They don't have to do hedging. That obviates the cost of the hedging requirement. So we have to think through the entire requirement of the sector, and I hope that our distinguished panelists will throw the issues or brainstorming as to what needs to be done by the various financing institutes in India and abroad to give impetus to the green hydrogen growth in the country. And India has to become a green hydrogen hub in the world. For that initiative, let us put our heads together and work out a clear-cut roadmap. I welcome all of you and hope that today's deliberation will lead us to creation of a roadmap for India being developed as a global hub for the green hydrogen. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, sir, for your pearls of wisdom. And now may we please request you, sir, Mr. Hitesh Sachdeva, to please take forth the proceedings for the session, the esteemed session moderator. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. Respected Chair, my esteemed panelists and ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. I think if not a couple of $100 million, at least I have a few trillions on the dais here. It's actually my privilege and honor to have all of you on the dais today to discuss about this subject, financing of the green hydrogen. It's thank you, Chair, for those opening comments. Very topical points that you brought up. Green hydrogen, as you all know, I think it holds the promise for accelerating our energy transition that we achieved. We are to some extent in the solar power and the wind power. I think if you look at the success of the solar mission and then the wind power, and now we are moving forward towards the dispatchable renewable energy. In terms of electrification, we have achieved a lot. There's a lot more to go. But when you look at hardcore-based sectors which cannot be directly electrified, there green hydrogen plays a very, very large role. But we do acknowledge that it's a very nascent industry. We need to do a lot. The projects need to be de-risked. The market needs to be de-risked. And towards exactly that end, we have a large panel, larger team, and very capable panel of deliberating on those topics. So, Mr. Das, I think you are the man with the Midas touch. I think congratulations on the astounding success of your organization and IPO. Sir, I'll start with you. I think IREDA, you have pioneered the renewable sector. I think you were there when this market exists. And maybe I think we expect that you will play the same role in the green hydrogen space. So the market is looking at you. So I think as the domestic lending system, yourself, REC, PFC now, I think you control greater than, let's say, 60% of the renewable finance market. So what are your feelings? How do you feel about the green hydrogen sector? And how do you think your role and the market will evolve from a financing standpoint?
Thank you. So very good morning to you all and esteemed panelists here. You already said the Midas touch. I don't know what is that means. We are in the sector and nobody is knowing about the sector, and as a lender, if nobody knows how you're going to lend, what is the risk you have taken. So that means we have already proven that we have the ability to take the risk when things are completely unknown. But as far as green hydrogen and its derivative is concerned, whole world is talking together. Things are unknown, but at least we know that we are not knowing. That time we were not knowing what is our level of blindness was. So when we could do that point of time and proven the last 37 years, if we have book size of disbursement size of 1,31,000 crore and a cumulative write-off of 202 crore, that speaks our competency, capability, and ability not only to assess the project well, but also to monitor and hand over the developer so that the account became good. And when not only Government of India, Mr. Dewangan has already spoken at length about the policy and the initiatives taken by government, especially MNRE and other ministries. Unlike renewable energy or electricity, in hydrogen space, green hydrogen and its derivative space, all other ministries, because the stakeholder is almost all other ministries are there. So it is a cohesive and collective effort how to ensure the sector is not only shifting from infancy to a maturity, that also in the quickest possible time. We cannot wait the way we waited in the country for 30 years. If you take out 10 years, what was the level of RE development in the country? Quite negligible vis-a-vis what we are today. So the kind of speed what we have generated in last 10 years, that is expected from the nascent stage of this sector. Now, what is the concern and difference and challenges? There, it was a PPA based, having a longer tenure. Project life of 25 years, you are getting PPA of 25 years. At least 20 years of the lender is comfortable to lend you. And when you have a guaranteed price, sell price, it is very easy for a lender to comfort and to support. But despite that, there were some challenges and issues which crop up because some of the state government decided, because when they realized that the future of renewable price is going to come down, I had agreed at a higher price. Why should I pay that? That is something which was probably not rational, and already Supreme Court has given its view on that, and that is become a history now. So learning from that, today when we are talking about green hydrogen and its derivatives, today it is not commercially viable. Therefore, the government has already considered a lot of concessions. If you see, without the concession, it is coming around $4 to $6. With the concession, it is coming to $2 to $3. We have to bring it down to $1 to make it most competitive and affordable. Now, how the cost can come down? One, technological intervention. Two, scale of economy, which we have seen in solar. If solar has gone 30 times in last 10 years, scale and technology both are there. 10 years back, the capacity utilization probably at 11, 12, and we have now reached up to 25, 26, 27. And the size and scale in the country what we have become the fourth largest as far as capacity is concerned. As far as speedy development, we are the fastest. Similarly, here, since policymakers and developers and the lenders, they are working from the beginning together in a cohesive manner. All out effort is to be made how to reduce the cost. If you see the cost component in a typical RE project, 70-30, hard cost at 70, and software finance cost largely, that is come to 25 to 30. And you don't have when. Here it is just different. You have 30% towards hard cost, and remaining is your electricity, which is your OPEX, not CAPEX. When a lender is coming forward, you have a contract price for 10 years. And that 10 years with a great effort, from 3 to 4 years, our ministry could go to 10 years. Now, what will happen after 10 years? How the lender is going to lend you? So these are the challenges, these are the concerns. So more and more technological intervention happens. Today, if you see 40-45% will be your electricity cost in the RE development. And that has to come again from RE power. So not only we have to reduce the hydrogen manufacturing cost, but also to ensure that its cost is getting reduced, we have to reduce our existing RE cost is going down. Perhaps when you are going down, at some point of time, you have to reach a level of saturation. Most likely in solar, we have reached to that extent. I don't think in solar you can go down drastically the cost per unit very fast. Now the emerging area like pump storage, battery storage, which is going to enable you to the round the clock power, which is one of the ingredient or tool, a prerequisite for green hydrogen manufacturing. That is to be focused. And then last but most important, enhancement. Everybody looks at what best rate you can offer to them. And we have already proven. Now, first of all, as a lender, if I have to give you the best rate, I should be having the capability to borrow from the market at the best rate. That is the primary thing. And if you look at in IREDA, what we have done in last 4 years, we have shifted from AA+ to AAA stable. Except one agency in the country, probably all agencies have rated us as stable. And one agency we have not done by choice, because I don't think we require rating from everybody in this world. And we have also recently gone for international rating, which was not there earlier. Now, if we have to resort to the global market, cheaper funds, then we should have a good rating. And IREDA is a public sector. First time they approach directly to S&P, not others. And we got a sovereign rating. It's a very difficult thing, but we have achieved that. Third, today, if you are borrowing from overseas, your hedging cost, already Dewangan sir has said, roughly 300 to 350 bips is there. Even if as a lender, I keep 50 bips with us and then pass on 300, that 300 is a big amount as far as interest cost reduction is concerned. Most important thing as a lender, we should develop our core competencies, how to do the speedy and accurate appraisal of the project. Speedier is the appraisal, your IDC is lesser. Whenever any borrower approaches us, They compare the rate of interest. I said, you can go to anybody else, don't come to us. We don't have that much time to discuss. Well, we understand, being a responsible agency, that we have to enable the most affordable rate. Since we do not have any fund, Government of India doesn't give anything to us. We borrow from the market. Whatever government has given, that's fine. I don't think in the era of disinvestment, when they decided to give us 1,500 crore in March 22, in future they are going to give us again. That was the understanding with them. Since we are listed now, and the market has taken us quite well, we have the responsibility to go to the market and generate fund. So when we are generating fund from the market, we are answerable to them with fair amount of return to them, either in the form of dividend or in the form of capitalization. Now, all efforts IREDA has taken. Deep City Office already, Dewangan said, we have already received in principle approval. And the conditions what they have imposed, we can achieve that as fast as possible. But before that, we want to bring a fully high-tech mechanism in place. Today, we are doing the business of IREDA in a completely zero paper environment. First government company in the history in the country probably is working in a paperless office. And we have reached to a near zero visitor concept as far as business is concerned. We do 99.99% meetings to be virtual mode. So this is enabling the developer to do the fastest access of information in clarification. That is saving their time and our time. That is in turn reducing the project cost on their part also. And in the time to come, the developers who are coming to us or anybody, any lender, if they want to avail the cheapest fund, first they have to ensure having a good governance. First, they have to ensure that they have a good rating with them. Even if I improvise my rating, if I do not have your good rating, we cannot give you at a lesser rate. So your rating and your project's rating, integration of that is going to determine what is the rate. And I can confirm in this platform, being the standard arm of MNRE, we have shouldered the responsibility of supporting the sector from infancy stage to the maturity stage as far as vanilla is concerned. When I'm saying vanilla, that is wind solar hydro. And again, since the size and kind of business requirement is so huge, one IREDA cannot do 10 IREDA required. And with REC PFC together, we can complement each other, which will be sufficient enough to has 10x of IREDA. And I'm sure the developer is not going to struggle for that. That is what I'm talking of debt part. As far as equity is concerned, we have to still take the support of developed economy. And in debt part also, we need some kind of blended finance to reduce the cost so that this can become affordable. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. I'll take up your last point first, which is concessional finance. How do you reduce the cost of capital for the market? So I turn to Moez, who is the lead energy specialist. He brings a lot of experience from the developing markets. Moez, I think as World Bank, you have significant instruments which enable this transition by providing concessional finance. So I would request you to throw some light on your initiatives in this sector and how can the market evolve in your view.
Thank you, Hitesh, for inviting me to this distinguished panel. It's a pleasure to be here with this discussion. So indeed, I mean, as we have just heard, the big challenge in the green hydrogen industry is the high cost, I mean, particularly the cost differential between green and gray hydrogen. So there are different ways of bringing down this cost. Of course, probably the primary role comes to the governments through various supports and the subsidy schemes to bring down this cost. But as was just said, there is also an important role to be played by financing. So the lower the cost of finance, the more you can bring these two, the more competitive the hydrogen will become. So whether it's the World Bank or other international financial institutions, that's where we can play an important role. We have a number of instruments that we can put on the table. Of course, the first and most obvious is lending from our institutions for themselves, whether it's lending to the public sector or to the private sector. This lending is concessional. It's basically it's long term. It has to lower the interest rates. It has to be flexible. Require as little collateral as possible. And in order to achieve that purpose, we generally blend it with climate finance. So from institutions like the Green Climate Fund or the CIF to lower that cost. So that's the first blended finance, as you said, is the first solution. But we also have important instruments which are guarantees. Guarantees can play an important role, and we can avail these guarantees to the market via public sector institutions. So this is to guarantee the payments, but most importantly is to guarantee repayment to commercial lenders. So we can provide a package of guarantees that will encourage commercial lenders and reassure them that in case there is any default in payments, they will still be paid, and therefore they can also bring down their cost of financing. Then another important tool is the carbon finance. So tapping the international carbon finance markets, and we can help with that. I know it's not always, it has not been so easy. And of course, I understand that government of India itself intends to develop a local carbon market. So these are some of the tools. Of course, in order to achieve that, you need a clear taxonomy, clear definition of what is exactly the green, what can be described as green hydrogen, what is not, as well as certification. And I think my colleague from IFC can speak more about the private sector angle, the venture capital. I mean, there are also other things that can be contributed. Thank you.
Thank you, Moez. And I'll pick up from your thought process and Mr. Das's thought process. And I think, Ranjit, I turn to you now. Ranjit, two issues have come up. Number one, I think we had a sidebar in the morning over it. There is this feeling that green hydrogen is still 2 or 3x of the cost of the gray hydrogen, which is the baseline fuel today. And the second point which came up was the offtake conundrum. So while you have financing, which is meant to be longer term in nature, secured by offtake agreements, on the other hand, you have green hydrogen contracts which are lesser duration and could also have some merchant exposure. So I think I would welcome your thoughts on it. I think these are a few of the barriers which are in the way of the green hydrogen economy. I think what are your thoughts on how can we overcome these challenges as a country?
Thanks, Hitesh. Yeah, so for a developer, the biggest challenge is, of course, the fact that everybody, says that green hydrogen is so much more expensive than gray hydrogen, and therefore, it's difficult to get offtake. And I am going to speak largely about the Indian context. Like when we talk about the Indian context, actually, we get squeezed from both ends. When people talk about hydrogen being 50 cents to a kilogram or $1 to a kilogram, we disregard the fact that actually when we are talking about India and we are talking about natural gas, which is the main way that hydrogen is generated today, delivered to most of the fertilizer industry or refineries, the cost of natural gas delivered is $12, right? I mean, if you bring it from Qatar, you bring it from other countries, the natural gas is linked to the oil basket, and then you have to, transport it, as in you have to liquefy it, transport it, to gasify it, transport it again. And by the time it is delivered to the customer, it's $12. At $12 delivered gas, and gas has gone up to 15, 18, 20, depending upon what the international prices are. But even at a $12 price, the cost of gray hydrogen in India is $2, right? So if you're comparing to $2, we are certainly, not that far away from a $2 price as we would consider, when we hear people in the market. Just like Mr. Das said, if you talk about, the government subsidies and so on and so forth, green hydrogen can be delivered between $2 to $3. Right? And when we talk about the government subsidies, really, the government subsidies are a small part of it. What we as developers are asking is that we should be treated on par with an import economy, right? In the sense that when you're importing natural gas, you are importing gray ammonia, you are importing from an environment where there are no custom duties. The financing is done in US dollar terms for the gas that is produced. The gas is paid, or the ammonia is paid for in US dollars. Even gas that is produced in India or ONGC or Reliance is paid for in dollars by the consumer, right? So therefore, we should be allowed to price our green hydrogen and gray ammonia or green ammonia in US dollars. And if we do that, even today, we will be able to deliver green hydrogen at 260, 270, 275, 280 per kilogram, right? And if we look back at the time when solar was brought on the ground, solar was at 15 rupees, 16 rupees, 17 rupees, and thermal power at that time was 4 rupees, 4 rupees 50 paisa, in fact 3 rupees 50 paisa. So there was a 4x difference between the solar power and grey power, and the government still went ahead and promoted green power, right? And here we are talking between $2 and $2.75. So we are talking, 35%, 40% difference between grey and green. And these numbers are not just numbers that you pick, anywhere from, from the air, right? I mean, if you look at actual auctions that have taken place in India and in Europe, these are the numbers that come out. If you look at there was a hydrogen tender that happened in Europe where they had put a subsidy cap of €4.50, that you can't take a subsidy more than €4.50 per kilogram of hydrogen sold, right? This happened in March, April this year. The average, when the tender closed, the average subsidy was 40 euro cents. 40 euro cents was the average subsidy. That means there were people at the margins who were willing to buy green hydrogen at whatever was the generated price of green hydrogen on the continent in Europe, which is a lot more expensive than the MENA region or in India. And they wanted only a 40-cent subsidy. H2 global tender just closed last month. And that closed at about, $850, $860 to the ton for ammonia, right? And this is, again, a 6 or 7 year contract. It's not a 25-year contract. It's a 6 or 7 year contract. So if you do a 25-year contract and you look at the number, you will probably be in the range of $700 to $750 of ammonia per ton. And if you're looking at 700, 750 tons of ammonia, that means your hydrogen is going to be sub 3. There is no way that you can deliver 700-ton ammonia if your hydrogen is higher than $3. So these are tenders that have closed. These are not numbers that are just, out of some Excel sheet. And if you look at the numbers of the tenders that happen in India you are starting to see tenders where the CUFs are 60%, 70%, 80%. If you look at CUFs of 70% approximately, which is what you need for an electrolyzer to run at the very minimum, you will see that those numbers that you see in SECI tenders, if you back out the dollar cost, the dollar funding, you will see that the numbers that will lead to a $3 or $2.75 hydrogen are borne out. So these are actual numbers which exist today, right? So when we look at these numbers, when you look at this hydrogen, green hydrogen, and the difference between green hydrogen and gray hydrogen from the Indian context, and you add the fact that we should be looking at energy security, we should be looking at energy independence, which is one of the key themes of Prime Minister Modi's attempt at increasing the green economy in India, then I think it's a fair price to pay. And the other thing is that when we, for example, got into the business, it's very clear that unless and until this gets commercial, solar, whether it is solar, whether it is wind, unless and until there is a path to commercial where you can see that green is going to be at par with gray, this business is not going to go far, right? So do we see as an industry that there is a path to going from $2.75 to $1.90 or $1.95 or $1.99, which will be lower than what we are getting today? And there is a very, very clear path to that. And we can say that, we will be able to produce green hydrogen at sub-2 in the next 3, 4, 5 years with all the technological advances that are happening across the world and even in India. I mean, just yesterday, Thermax has signed with Ceres, which is an SOEC provider, to develop their technology in India, right? So we are talking today of 55 units of power to a kilogram of hydrogen. And the theoretical limit is somewhere near 38 or 39 units of power for a kilogram of hydrogen. There's a long way to go on the technology side, even on the electrolyzer side, on the cost of the electrolyzer side. And so there is a clear path which we can see to $2. So I think it's very important for India at least to look at this. And I think these tenders that have been announced by SECI and by the refineries will go a long way in promoting the green economy in India.
Thank you, Ranjit. From the debt and the offtake, I move to the equity thoughts. I think I have two speakers sitting to the extreme my left of the panel. So, Tarun, coming first to you. We need to unlock a lot of financing at the cheapest cost possible to cross this barrier that Ranjit talked about. I think the first threshold to cross is maybe bring the GH to sub-2 dollars. Now, I think I would welcome your thoughts on what are the pots of capital available from a green hydrogen finance perspective. I think that's my first question. And the second thing I want you to speak in the same way is you have been active in this market. So what are the barriers you see to financing when actually a real opportunity comes on your table? So in any sequence that you want to do.
Thanks, Hitesh. So, we heard about debt side and we have fairly strong balance sheets represented here on the panel. Very briefly, IFC is the largest private sector development financing institution in the world. We are part of the World Bank Group. Our intent is to crowd in private capital across sectors and countries through structuring and creating structures where private capital feels constrained. And in that respect, green hydrogen is, I think, one of the great sectors that needs to be supported with capital across the stack. Earlier conversations and earlier thoughts were shared from the debt side, on the equity side. Obviously, as we see opportunities, the expectations of equity returns from a sector like this is anywhere north of 20%, if not higher. And therefore, if one was to look at providing equity capital for a typical 1 MTPA green ammonia plant, it could, which could have a project cost of anywhere between $3 to $5 billion, including the RE. One would look at significant chunks of equity or equity-like capital coming in. I think to expect any institutional investor to write big equity checks in a sector like this is a bit unrealistic. And therefore, I think some kind of mezzanine instruments would have to be created to support a space like this. Unlike renewable energy, which basically move bottom up in terms of capacity, on green hydrogen, we are seeing big announcements, straight off the hip, 500,000 ton, 1 million ton of green ammonia capacity. So it's not really a bottom up scaling up in that sense, and therefore, to your point, Hitesh, yes, some kind of mezzanine structures, some kind of subordinated equity structures, which necessarily does not require dilution of promoter equity, but fills in a nice sweet spot between debt and equity is something which would be helpful. Onto your second question in terms of what are the key challenges, I think a lot of them have been mentioned. And from an equity point of view, obviously, beyond a point, if one was to look green hydrogen as an industrial gas project, because technically it's still not classified as infrastructure. If it's industrial gas project, we'll have to see how equity funding happens on gas or chemical plants. I think it's very different from the way the infrastructure developers are used to raising equity for their projects. If green hydrogen does get classified as infrastructure, then there's a completely different lens to look at the set of risk. But I think a lot of requirement from the financing community is on visibility of offtake contracts. Now, visibility of offtake contracts is great from a debt point of view, not necessarily from an equity point of view, because you do get equity bump ups in commodity cycles. Now, what does that mean in terms of equity exposures and how long can you take an equity exposure? Is something or is a learning which will have to be imbibed from the gas or chemical business. From a debt point of view, just reiterating a point which was made earlier, if you're looking at a 20% equity return and a 14-15% project return, what should be your debt capital? Now, I know when you ask my friends like Ranjit, he would say probably in single digits. But I think it becomes a bit challenging for investment committees who are evaluating both debt and equity to look at such a wide gap between an equity return expectation and a debt capital being in single digits. And that's again, I think, comes back to some kind of concessional funds being brought in. My final point is on sponsor support, because if you're giving, and this is again from a debt side, from an equity side, institutional investors will not want to put in support on the table to support debt or financiers or lenders. But if your offtake contracts are not more than 6-7 years, if your construction takes 3 or 4 years, what should your ideal debt tenor be? Now, again, in the market, the expectation is 15 years or not. But given these challenges, I think these are the kind of issues which needs to be addressed by developing specific structures to mitigate these concerns, at least in the first few projects before the market takes off and is able to scale up. Stop it.
Before I turn to you, I think you represent NIIF, so I think you play multiple roles in the market as the master fund, and then you have various sub funds, various pools of capital with varying risk appetite that you deploy in the market. I think I would welcome your thoughts. The chair of the panel talked about India's ambition, and it's very closely tied into how you would also bring financing to this ecosystem. So, how do you evaluate the risk reward for green hydrogen as NIF? And a second part where I want to ask you is how do you also think about electrolyzer manufacturing? It's an imminent part of the financing ecosystem that we need to develop. So your macro country level view, and then a micro view on how as NIIF you would want to act in this ecosystem.
Thanks. So at NIIF, we currently manage about $5 billion of equity money which has been raised from Government of India and from international investors. And we have different parts of the question which Hitesh was asking earlier, from where we invest into all types of projects. Firstly, coming to the green hydrogen itself, what have we done so far? The first one which we did was we had to understand what is this green hydrogen, what are the kinds of technologies which are available, how does it work? And we had to run a pilot for ourselves. And usually our strategy has been to do platforms of our own, where we own majority of these platforms and then we operate it. So we have a platform called, and for doing some kind of a demonstration of a technology or for a pilot scale, we can't be creating our own platform and doing some experiment and lose capital. Therefore, what we did was we have a renewable energy company. It's called INR Renewables based out of Bangalore. It has about 5 gigawatts of renewable energy projects across the country. Solar, wind, RTC, all kinds of projects are there under them. And we created some excess solar capacity there and created a pilot green hydrogen plant. We partnered with a company called Greenstat of Norway. This was in 2022, and we started a pilot testing of this whole thing as to whether it will work, and this is purely not for commercial, not for selling of the green hydrogen itself, and we did some learning there. So that's something which we did couple of 2 years back. There are some learnings, and we will take it forward. The other thing which green transition itself and green hydrogen, all of them is very core to NIF and all for investment philosophies. And we have multiple pots of capital. One of the things which we have is a pure equity fund. It's a $600 million fund, which takes minority equity stakes into green transition projects. It's called the India-Japan Fund. It has already started investing, and we could take minority positions in commercially viable projects. To answer this question as to how do we assess risk, these are larger checks. The equity check itself could be $50 to $100 million, and therefore we cannot take venture or early stage kind of risks in these projects. We can't afford to lose our capital, and therefore the assessment of risk becomes more of commercial in nature, whether the technology has been well established, proven at the scale at which we want offtake agreements. These are absolutely hygiene points for us when we look for equity investments from that fund. The last point which I wanted to mention was there was a lot of discussion here about the need for blended finance, the need for lower cost financing of projects itself, and especially these kind of emerging technologies, and reducing the cost of green hydrogen, and what are we doing as an eye on that. So one of the things which we have been doing is we are probably for the first time in this country, we are setting up a blended finance product where we are raising about $2 billion exclusively for green transition projects, and green hydrogen is also included in that. Supply chains and manufacturing is also included in that, and that's a big portion of the entire funding itself. So we are raising about $2 billion, where certain investors, a group of two investors, they are taking lower return. They are providing concessional capital. And on top of that, we are raising commercial capital from international investors, so that the blended finance product, the ultimate cost at which we will be able to provide equity or equity kind of an instrument becomes lower. So that blended finance product, it's called the US India Green Transition Fund. And we are currently doing a fundraise, and we are hopeful of doing a close of this fund somewhere at about $1 billion or so in the next couple of months, in about 3 or 4 months' time. So these are the various ways in which we have been interacting, and this is how we see the risks in this project. Early stage, we do it either through our platforms. We don't take venture risk, technology risk. So these are the different types of pockets which we have. The second question which we are asking about, how do we see the supply chain and the electrolyzers? I don't understand the technology. I'm not a technologist myself, and therefore we would certainly support electrolyzer manufacturing, but we need to understand the technology well. And I should be honest, that within our own ecosystem, while we have limited understanding, I cannot claim a master to underwrite a check of $50 million or $100 million into a manufacturing kind of a thing. We will develop it over a period of time, might be over the next 6 months, a year. We will do that, and we to support India's green transition itself. We will support these kind of innovative technologies.
Thank you, Mukundan. Nishaanth, cliche, but last but not the least. Out of my playbook, I have two questions again. So the first one is how, as Green Hydrogen Organization, how do you see what innovations can be brought to reduce cost of capital? I think to breach that barrier of per kg cost of green hydrogen. That's one. Moez raised an important point. I think the taxonomy to avoid the greenwashing. I think you are at the crossroads where you also work in that area. So I would want you to dwell on these two topics and what could, as a country, we could do to move forward with these two dimensions.
Thanks very much, Hitesh. Good afternoon to everyone here. Some of them on the panel, we've been involved in these discussions. But just before that, the Green Hydrogen Organization is a global foundation that is working to accelerate the larger green hydrogen sector. And when we started this work 2 years ago, financing was a key aspect, right? And today we're still talking about it. And if you look at the entire global landscape, maybe we should step back and also look at why are we doing this? Why am I trying to sell you an iPhone for 3.5 lakhs, right? And the government is saying, no, we should do this. People are saying you should buy it, right? Only because we are here racing against time to get to a net zero world and fight against climate change. And green hydrogen is a valuable component. So we need to do this fast, right? We need to do this fast. And if you look at the entire landscape, Indian Oil is not doing the biggest green hydrogen project. Your fertilizer companies are not doing the biggest green hydrogen projects. It's our renewable energy companies that have stepped up. They've not done this before. They've not handled molecules, but they've stepped up because they've taken the risks 15, 20 years ago. They've done it. So they are leading the way here. Now, let's come into financing. Last year, I was at a, this was not a conference, but a workshop with all the bankers in India. And we had all the banks sitting in the audience. How many of you all have looked at a green hydrogen project? Nobody raised their hand, right? India has the biggest banks in the world. None of them had done it. But of course, it's, two gentlemen sitting next to me who've done most of the work. And, we see India's commitments and, India's already exceeded its targets in announcements. So we need to get everybody to the table. And I like what, Tarun brought about, we need to do this in a mezzanine structure as well. We need the VCs. We need people like, Mr. Pradeep and Mr. Vivek here. We need HDFC and SBI to come in, but we also need more institutional capital, right? Where's LIC, right? If you look at all the money on the table, how much of that money is coming into finance, into climate projects? In India, I think the last data that was released by CIP was there's only 1.5% of institutional capital is in climate, right? And climate is a crisis. So we need to get everybody into the table and have this discussion. The next is, if you look globally as well, there's, you can talk about the bond market and all of that, but even institutional capital in foreign countries, they have so many restrictions against investing in Indian projects, right? And that same dollar invested in the US versus the same dollar invested in India has a larger impact on climate, right? Not just jobs and the economy. So we need to look on the top level, how do we bring all of this foreign capital into the country? And I think, we should give a round of applause for REC and what they've done at Gift City. Now, that is phenomenal. Last year, we were talking about this to Mr. Kant at G20 and also with Mr. Tarun at the BMO about having FX hedging, instruments to help enable all of this to come in. And I need to tell you guys, some of you all are involved in this. We are having a delegation to London later this month, which is led by the former chairman of SEBI, Mr. UK Sinha. And the London Stock Exchange has agreed to support some of these, ideas I'm talking about now. So there's money available. We need to, get people into the room, build the right structures, to bring all of this capital for the sector. When it comes to taxonomies, we had 1 or 2 comments come on about how to reclassify the entire industry, because you see, green hydrogen is very unique, right? The value chain is very, very large. It's overlaps with several other ministries, right? MOPNG want to do this because they're already handling the molecule. We are in the industry, but renewable energy and power is a big aspect of the whole green hydrogen sector. We need to see if we can even classify this as a priority lending sector as well, right? Because climate should be a priority and we need to reclassify. We need to, look back and revisit credit rating agencies and see how we can, enable more money to come in. But finally, this is the most important thing. This is what Green Hydrogen Organization has been doing. 2 years ago, when we launched the first voluntary scheme to certify green hydrogen, we had few clauses there that till today governments are ignoring, which is land use, water use, community engagement, gender equality, right? If today we are going to put millions of dollars towards a project and they have a 10-year offtake or a 15-year offtake, but in 3 years, something comes out of the blue that there was land grabbing issues, communities are not happy, it's going to affect and this whole space is going to lose credibility. So certification is important. And in this certification mechanism, it's not just about emissions. What we are doing this so that it's green. So we need to look at emissions. There has to be strict thresholds with clearly defined system boundaries. But we also need to ensure that there is community engagement, there is proper land assessment and water assessments being done. We are not displacing agricultural land. We are not affecting communities. And there's also, good gender equality in the space, right? And that is something that's very dear to our organization, and women have an opportunity in green hydrogen. Thank you, Nishaanth. Thanks a lot.
We have time for 2 questions before I request the chair of the panel for the closing remarks. I think if you could pass on the mic.
My name is Shankar from John Cochrane. We are from manufacturing industry. And a lot has been talked for large projects, and we have targets for localization, 90% in the second year for electrolyzer manufacturing. So my question is, a lot of component making industry is looking at small ticket loans. And the commercial banks are asking them, okay, how many electrolyzers they sold last year? We know the answer is 0. So what would be your guidance for the manufacturing sector? Support, especially they cannot come to IREDA or this thing because these are small ticket sizes, 15 crore loan, 30 crore loan. So what is your advice? Thank you.
Perhaps you do not know about IREDA. We give even 2 crore loan.
Yeah, for manufacturing as well.
Yeah, okay, why not? If we are the extended arm of MNRE, this is our responsibility. For us, big or small immaterial. Where this sector has an infancy stage. But the question is, do you have your organizational governance in place or not? Amount is not important. Because when we go for rating, project and promoter, you should get something good out of it. Otherwise, it will not become affordable. We have sanctioned last week, I think, some 2 crore loan to some 2 megawatt project. Some 4-5 crore loan only.
Yeah, so it's the rest of the governance should be in. Yeah, the question is about demand. The banks or basically financial institutions are saying that the demand is not assured, and therefore the project is risky.
See, I think already Mr. Nishaanth was touching there. See, when the sector is in the infancy, no bank comes out. Let us accept it. That is the reason government's NBFC is in place. Otherwise, why RECPFC IREDA will be there? And what is bank's role? Bank, they have to look into largely retail. And in the total banking, their book size, if you see, minimum portion is project loan. And in that project, renewable will be very insignificant. And when the sector is unknown to them, who is going to come forward? So since we are the extended arm of the ministry, we know ins and outs, what is happening in the sector and what is likely to happen in the sector. So therefore, it is our prime responsibility. But the kind and scale in which it is going to take up, this NBFCs cannot do. Even if you see today, whatever finance has been done in RE space, 35% is coming from NBFC, 15% is coming from bank, 50% coming from bond market. For the kind and size what we require, we need a huge bond market now. So therefore, we have already recommended to Government of India 1.5 years back, please come out with a defined green taxonomy. Mr. Nishaanth touched about LIC. Now LIC is funding to REC or PFC indirectly something, a bigger portion. Then they have an organizational network link cap also on that. But we have recommended them at least up to 5% of AUM, the asset under management with them, can be mandated to them so that they put into the green bond market. So once you have a defined green taxonomy in place, then only it can be done. We are sitting here, some of the promoters sitting here. When they started the business, nobody was lending them. One example is Blue Smart Cars. 2 years back, nobody was lending them. We did it, which was completely unbankable. That became today most bankable. When they came to us, they had around 18 promoters. They are probably 180 promoters now, and all are PE funds. So therefore, we have to take a risk, calculated risk, and the developer and the lender and the policy maker have to work in a cohesive and transparent manner. Then only, and timely action to be taken. So a lot of work is to be done because the scale is going to be very huge. So definitely any lender, when they are going to lend you, whether it is, see, bank for them at branch level, they will be dealing because they have a delegation of power. Headquarter level this much, regional level this much, branch level this much. So branch level person may not be having that kind of expertise to deal with this issue. So that could be another issue also. So I'm not blaming bank, but bank has their, every organization has their own way of working.
Thank you, sir. Gentlemen. Thank you.
My name is Upendra. I am the CEO of Prasa Private Limited. We are into hydrogen fuel cell. There is a no word on the hydrogen fuel cell, how the funding is, means electrolyzer, everyone is talking about that. Because the hydrogen is available at $2. In what way it is getting consumed? The fuel cell is to be ready. So for that, what are the ways government is taking initiative in funding this hydrogen fuel cell projects?
Government has launched this Mahir scheme to promote this research and development, or particularly this kind of initiative to keep for hydrogen fuel cell. This the window of opportunity is there under Mahir scheme. We'll be able to share with you the details. It is available on the website of the Ministry of New Renewable Energy as well as on the website of Ministry of Power also. Should there be any doubt about it, how to go about it, they are there to give the further clarification.
Yeah, we have applied for all the schemes and also it is taking their own time. By the time
I think we can take that offline. Thank you very much. We've come to the end of the.
How VC's private funding or any
Sure.
NBFC can.
So you're looking at other sources of
Yes,
capital.
yes.
I think Tarun, Mukundan, if you want to take that question. Yeah, Nishaanth.
I think, this is where when you look at enabling the entire sector, when you're an emerging technology, you need to go to that level of risk takers, right? That is VCs, right? You should start there because governments are there for the larger picture and, people like them, but that's why you should start with VCs. But I don't know if Tarun or Moez have something else. Okay, it's not even Moez's forte, but Tarun.
I think we did, you did share concerns in terms of expectations on VC funding coming for such projects. I mean, 500,000 ton, like $2 billion of project capex, 30% equity, $600 million. How much VC fund do you need? I mean, even assuming 20%, you're looking at around $100 million ticket. VCs don't fund $100 million ticket on individual transactions. On the fuel sales, I think there is VC involvement. Thanks for correcting me. So on the fuel sales, VC funding has been available, but again, institutions like IFC do not have dedicated funds available for fuel sales. But if there are opportunities, we do have a VC shop, and we'll be happy to look at it.
Thank you, Tarun. With that, we have come to the end of the panel. It was a phenomenal panel. I would request the chair of the panel, Mr. Dewangan, to make some closing remarks. Sir.
Thank you, Hitesh. Our distinguished panelists have shared their views on various aspects of the ecosystem of developing green hydrogen economy in the country. And the major takeaway from this deliberation is that government will have to keep evolving the policy support to promote this ecosystem. Entrepreneurs and developers have to play a very significant role. The financing institutes have to make an enabling environment to facilitate low cost of financing for these initiatives. One more issue which has come up is that we need to have green taxonomy. We need to have clear-cut definition, how to certify these green projects, how to certify the initiatives. The green taxonomy is the need of the hour. And in fact, Ministry of New and Renewable Energy and Ministry of Power have already taken up with the Ministry of Finance. I understand that Department of Economic Affairs has already set up a task force to go about this green taxonomy, and Reserve Bank of India has also been working on this. I hope that we'll be able to develop green taxonomy for the country to promote this ecosystem. And my best wishes to all of you for your valuable input and your active cooperation. Thank you so much.
May I request you all to kindly give us a minute or two and please remain seated. And only if the learned panel would have casted the spell of the Midas touch on you, just give a tap onto the brainy skulls and check your pockets. If you find yourself any more wealthier and mightier, then, ladies and gentlemen, join me in extending a heartfelt round of applause to the distinguished panel for such a progressive section of the information. May I please request you to kindly do the honors of felicitating first the esteemed chair with a token of gratitude. Requesting Mr. Hitesh to please felicitate our esteemed chair, Mr. Dewangan, for his gracious presence and pearls of wisdom steering this session.
क्या हो रहा है? कोई और कैमरा नहीं है क्या? दूसरे कैमरे से दे दो भाई।
Our felicitations now to the eminent panelists. To begin with, felicitations to Mr. Pradeep Das, requesting you, our esteemed session moderator, to please continue on doing the honors.
Zoom बंद कर दें। Recording।
Thank you very much, sir.
देखो जान देंगे। आकाश से जा रही होगी ये recording।
Felicitations to Mr. Ranjit Gupta.
इसी कैमरे को रखो ना। उसको क्यों पकड़ रहे हो?
Felicitations to Mr. Nishaanth. Felicitations to Mr. Moez.
भीड़ दिखा रहे हैं
Felicitations to Mr. Mukundan. Mr. Mukundan, please join in. Thank you, sir. And felicitations to Mr. Tarun. Requesting you, sir, to please join in. And meanwhile, may I please call you, sir, Mr. Pavitra from MNRE, to kindly do the honors of felicitating the session moderator, Mr. Hitesh Sachdeva. Thank you very much, sir, for steering this session of deliberations, which makes us all stand well there. And calling for a photo up here. Requesting the entire panel to kindly join in for a photo of right here. And may I use this time to thank you all, ladies and gentlemen, for staying back. Thank you so much. Gratitude abound. Lunch awaits to welcome you all. And may we request the speakers to kindly proceed to M18 for the speakers lounge. Lunch waits there. Thank you.